If I could only read your mind with superhuman power, life would be a breeze sometimes. The good stuff's in between the lines, my thoughts and my feelings still tell 1,000 lies. But now you're taking away my sorrow, you're taking away my fear. We're not promised tomorrow, so let me hold you close, my dear. Nothing's gonna bring me down, no thinking about the past while we're building for tomorrow. Nothing's gonna bring me down.
Hello and welcome to episode 21 of The Good Stuff In Between. I'm your host, Shaun Milne, with a podcast that hopes to bring some advice and encouragement to those trying to get into the music industry from those who are already embedded in it. Today's guest has been around for a decade, studying, working and leading in the industry for events such as Wide Days, Off the Records and a whole host of stuff in between, giving presentations, talks and generally being a good egg for all people who are looking to make their mark. So I'm delighted to welcome Kitt Carr to the podcast today. Hello.
Hi.
You, as I've said, have been immersed in this for a long time now. What was it that drove you to think, yeah, music's for me?
I've always been into music. So I was at high school. I decided I was going to play in a band, and I was going to learn an instrument. So I picked drums. And when it came around to playing gigs or playing school concerts, I found that I had horrendous performance anxiety, and it really wasn't for me, which was a quite crushing moment at that time to be like, I really like music, and I'm really struggling to do this. And then we had these sort of employability classes, and I was kind of looking around on Skills Development Scotland back when people still used that to look for jobs, and found that you could study music business. So you could work behind the scenes, which I thought was great because kind of fixes the performance anxiety issue, but I can still work in music. So that's what I did. I applied to study at Perth UHI for music business, did a 4-year degree, and throughout uni, did various projects, volunteered at various events, and started my own music blog and kind of immersed myself in the local scenes in Edinburgh and Glasgow, and built some great friends through that and got to interview loads of bands, and really enjoyed that whole process.
When I was looking at some information ahead of the podcast today, I noted that you'd originally be from Sheffield, you moved to Scotland. You credit, I think, your dad with your eclectic music taste as well. Perth UHI, if people don't know, the music course there is superb. Gives a fantastic range of ideas of what to expect and some practical skills and very hands-on from what I understand. You alluded to your blogs there. You started a few along the way. You had Club Decode, and then you went on to do New Wave Testament. Did you enjoy doing those? Was that kind of a bit of a buzz, or was it a sort of vanity project? How do you describe that?
I think, in all honesty, writing and kind of not journalism wasn't really for me. Um, to not sound too harsh, it was kind of like a means to an end. It was a way to get out to loads of gigs. It was a way to interview bands. It was a way to meet loads of people and kind of be present within the music industry so that people could start putting a name to a face and I could start building my own connections. But it wasn't all bad. It was fun. It was nice going and interviewing bands, being when I started the blog, I think I was 18. So, being backstage and interviewing bands is something like I've been thinking about since I was a teenager. So it was yeah, it was great. It was fun. And it definitely helped progress my career
I
further
think
forward.
that's a key, isn't it? That kind of networking, because that's then presumably helped you get to do other things like artist liaison, doing stuff at Belladrum in the press area there, going on to work with DF, concerts and events, and obviously what you do now. Is it a key part of getting into this business, would you say? Is just getting out there, putting yourself there and saying hello?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's I bang this drum all the time, and everyone I speak to and every event that I speak at, it's you have to get out there and meet people. There are so many opportunities to I guess volunteer places aren't really as prevalent as they used to be. But kind of like work experience opportunities, email organizations and ask if you can go and shadow them at their job, or ask if they're looking for a pair of helping hands on a festival, or really get out there and kind of build your network by speaking to people, by going to gigs, by researching opportunities, and going and working at various festivals and events that come up in Scotland.
It's really hard to do that as well, though, because people have got bills to pay, you've got money for all sorts of things. If you're in a band, you certainly need money to go and do things, be it equipment or touring. Is there a way it can be easier for folk to do that, or do you just need to suck it up?
No, I never tell anyone to suck it up. That would be harsh. I think the music industry is becoming more understanding, which is really great, that everyone has their own set of circumstances and everyone's got stuff going on and their own personal experiences that they're having to deal with alongside trying to build this career in the industry and speak to all these people. I'm from a working class background. I didn't have, I mean, it was super helpful that, university is free in Scotland. So that was incredibly helpful. But I didn't have a helping hand to put myself through uni, to kind of get out there and travel to events and things like that. So I can understand that it is incredibly difficult. I mean, up until the end of 2023, I had a day job. I've had a day job since I started uni all the way through until the end of 2023 to support my career in music, but also so I can live and eat and pay my bills and everything else. So yeah, it is tough managing your time and avoiding, things like burnout and stuff comes up quite a lot, is that, you're spinning lots of plates, you want to progress your career, you want to take on all these opportunities, but you're trying to book time off from your day job to be able to go and do it. And it's navigating that is really, really tough. There isn't a super easy way to navigate that, unfortunately. But I always say to people, and I've always said it off the records, there is no shame in having a day job and also pursuing your music industry job or pursuing your band. If that is what helps you progress, then do it. There's nothing to be ashamed of that you don't work in music full time. There are so many people, even older than me, who don't work in music full time because they've not been able to come across a full time job yet, or an organization can't afford to pay them full time. They can only stay on a part time contract. So it's finding what works best for you to navigate that and being sensible with what you take on so that you don't burn out. Like, it's okay to say no to something. It's not going to be the end of your career if you say, no, do you know what? Sorry, I can't pick up that shift. I can't go and work box office at that gig because actually I'm really tired and I need to take some time to myself. So yeah, just be kind to yourself about the whole process.
I think that's a real fear for people. Some of the folk I'm chatting with just now, an opportunity will come up perhaps to play a gig or take part in some other kind of background work, and they're just so scared to say no in case it's seen as, oh, well, we can't rely on them, or they're obviously not interested. And my experience, that's quite opposite, because the reason I asked the question originally was in the last podcast with Colin Hardy. He was a former manager of Mogwai. We talked about how it seemed to be a bit easier when they first came out because there was different kinds of support. There was housing benefit. There was a different kind of attitude towards trying to help people into work and things. And I guess maybe one thing we can take some comfort from is now that we have moved on several decades from there, people who've since come through in the industry have all had that lived experience that you're talking about there and do understand the pressures, the modern pressures in particular on people. And if somebody does, as you say, I can't do it tonight, I'm sorry, or I can't take that gig, then it's not the end of the world because they get it. They've probably been there too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's advice I always give, that people will understand and people will actually appreciate your honesty if you're like, look, I can't do this gig tonight because I've been working 5 shifts straight and I'm really tired and I'm not going to give the best performance that I want to give at this moment. People will appreciate that honesty instead of you take on the gig and maybe you're not quite at the caliber that you usually are. And then, it's then a conversation after that to be kind of like, next time, just tell me, just be honest. It's okay to to not take on absolutely everything. And it's the same with event work. A lot of people in the music industry work freelance. I can reach out to people for design work and things, and they'll get back and say, actually, I've got a lot of design work on at the moment, so I can't commit to this because I don't want to kind of ruin your timelines for your project because I'll have to deliver this late. And having that honest and open conversation is really beneficial and helps things move forward, and doesn't mean that I won't then go back to that same designer and be like, for the next project, do you have time to commit to this? Like, I'll never be like, oh, that person said no that time, so therefore I'm never going to work with them again. I appreciate the honesty from people.
And this is so great to hear from yourself because there's so few opportunities for people to pick up on this kind of advice. And that's something that you facilitate on a day-to-day basis, both through Wide Days and off the record. Can you tell us a little bit more about what those organisations and events do?
Yeah, so Off the Record and Wide Days sit under an event umbrella called Wide Events CIC. We're a community interest company, and we put on Wide Days, Off the Record, and also networking evenings called Born to be Wide. So Off the Record is a kind of youth-focused industry event series for 16 to 25-year-olds based in Scotland. It's all about providing routes to access to the music industry, demystifying the music industry for grassroots artists and aspiring industry professionals, and kind of showing that there are many routes within the music industry that you can pursue and that you can pursue at the same time as well. You don't have to just pick one avenue and then navigate that one. So it's all about providing advice from speakers who are kind of a couple of levels above the attendees. So there's that level of attainability. They're all kind of the same age bracket. So it's kind of a confidence builder and also a knowledge sharing exercise and networking opportunity. Wide Days is a little bit further on that. So Wide Days is another industry event. It's a conference and showcase, which is 3 days, and it takes place in spring every year. And with Wide Days, it's got a Scottish focus, so a domestic focus, and also an international focus. And it's kind of a meeting point for international and Scottish delegates to come together and do business and learn from each other and build export opportunities for Scottish artists and industry to travel and go to other events and showcase and perform at other festivals in Europe or the US or the rest of the world. So through Wide Days, we have a 12-month mentoring program for 4 Scottish artists who go through mentoring days with different industry professionals, and then it all comes together at a showcase at Wide Days. And then we also have a branch called New from Scotland, which is slightly more light touch, and we bring kind of 10 to 12 Scottish bands in to showcase on the Thursday and the Friday of the event. And they all perform to the international industry delegates and the Scottish delegates, and they've got an opportunity to kind of meet those people and build their connections, and then hopefully that leads to something in the future for them. And then offshoot of Wide Days, we also do a bunch of export activity. So we take Scottish artists to different international events and we present them under the Scotland At banner. So through that, we work with Focus Wales, The Great Escape, Future Echoes in Sweden, Eurosonic, and South by Southwest. So we take bands across and they perform under the Scotland At banner, and they get all the benefits of being at those events as well.
So Wide as last year, I saw the lineup and all the people involved, and it just looked like it was so well received and so badly needed, really. I know you're already working on 2026 and doing various sort of offshoots from that this year. Before that, you've got another off the record event coming up, talking about building your own sort of live audiences. How's that going to happen? How can people get involved, and what should they expect?
So yeah, on Wednesday, April 2nd, we've got our final online event evening. So this one's all about building your live audience. So we've got Robbie McNichol from Forgetting the Future, who are a great band who are DIY approach, building their live audiences, sell out gigs really quickly, and are really just really grafting hard to kind of build their career and their momentum. So Robbie will be talking all about how they've built their live audience, how they've kept their audience engaged, how they work with promoters, and how they have organized their own shows and what's involved in that for anyone looking to organize their own gigs. We've also got a session on the grassroots live industry, agents, promoters, and touring. So we've got Meg Denham, who is a local assistant promoter for DF Concerts. We've got Kat Driver, who's a tour coordinator and live agent at ATC. And then we've got Ema Marcus, who's an intern agent for Runway Artists. And they're going to be talking about how they work with artists, how artists can approach them, and how promoters work with artists to kind of book shows and support slots, what ticket splits and fees would be involved in the show. And then the agents on the session will also talk about, how they work with artists, what stage an artist should be at to get a booking agent, and how that kind of whole process works to kind of demystify the live industry, so to speak. So yeah, it's Wednesday the 2nd of April, and tickets are free. And you can register for them through the Off the Record website, and you can see all the details on the event on our social media accounts, which are OTR Scott across everything to make it nice and easy.
Is this something that happens to you all the time? You'll be like at an event or walking down the street and someone say, "Oh, how do I do this?"
Yeah, if I'm out at a gig and it's someone who knows me and we already have kind of a rapport. I don't want to make it sound like I'm famous or something like that, and people are just like, "Oh my God," that doesn't happen at all. But if I'm at a gig, or if I'm doing a box office shift and someone who has come through Off the Record or has been at an Off the Record event is at that gig, then yeah, they sometimes will ask me questions about how they do this, or they're really polite and it's really sweet, and they'll schedule a meeting with me, and then they'll sit down on a meeting with me, and they'll talk about their plans for their next release or just bits of advice. And it's part of the process, and it's part of my role is, I'm happy to speak to people. And if I can't answer the question, because sometimes I can't answer the question, I don't know the answer, I can point them in the right direction, and I can introduce them to people who can answer the question as well. So that is as much a part of the Off the Record series as the events are, is kind of that advice and support role for people who are coming up through Off the Record, kind of like, where do you go next, or introducing them to people who might be able to better answer their question than I can. It all kind of forms part of that kind of focus of the event.
Do you think you've got a deeper empathy with people because you've put in the hard yards, you've gone a long way around, you've done the work experience, you've had to do that yourself? Did you just sort of get it and think, yeah, I'll tell you what I can?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always more than happy to help anyone who asks a question or needs advice or support. It was something that I didn't really have going through uni. So yeah, I'll always help where I can with people. And if, like I said, if I can't answer or I can't help on that particular thing, then I'll put them in touch with someone that can. I don't want to see anyone struggle. And I don't want to see anyone give up because they've not got the information they need to take them to the next step. Yeah, I feel like I've had a lot of benefits from Scotland's music industry, and I've been really lucky in the job that I'm in to meet so many incredible people. I'm not then going to kind of be like really guarded about it and be like, "Oh, well, I've met these people now, but no one else can know who these people are." It's all about giving back, and I've had a lot from the industry already, and I continue to benefit from Scotland's music industry. So I don't then want to not help the next generation of industry professionals and artists benefit from Scotland's music industry as well.
What would you say is some of the more sort of common ask from people when they say they've got a challenge or facing some kind of those barriers that you're trying to smash down?
There's a lot of confidence that is needed to work in the industry. So a lot of the time, a lot of the questions that I'm asked are about, they're kind of around networking and around how do you make a conversation? How do you start a conversation? Who are these people? Who should I speak to about this particular issue? I think a lot of the times, for grassroots artists in particular, they're looking for more live opportunities, and they're looking for advice around their releases and how to kind of get their music in front of the right people so that it gets picked up and they maybe get a BBC introduce and play, or they get picked up in one of the many music platforms within Scotland. For industry, aspiring industry, it is just kind of like, how do I start? How do I get my foot in the door? How do I get a job, even if it's a part-time job or a day a week? How do I do that? How do I kind of get over that hurdle and that barrier? That question is more difficult to answer because there are so many people who are looking to get a foot in the door in the industry, but there are so few jobs. It can be a difficult process, and I try and encourage people to continue and to carry on applying for jobs, because you'll never You'll never get a job if you don't keep applying. But it can be really disheartening and demotivating to be like, "Oh, that's another job I've not got." And a lot of the time, it's not because the person's not right for the job, it's because someone maybe was ever so slightly better, but they've had 150 applications for 2 job roles and they can't take on everyone. I wish I could take on everyone that applies to any job. But yeah, that's not possible and it's not feasible. It can be demotivating, it can be disheartening. The one thing I always say to people is kind of start your own project where possible. Running the music blog didn't cost me any money. It cost me my time to put into it. It didn't cost me any money to get it off the ground. I think that people who kind of start their own projects and get out there a bit more find it a little bit easier to navigate than if people don't really go out and just keep applying to jobs. I disagree with the statement that it's not what you know, it's who you know. I do disagree with that, but being out and people being able to put a face to a name does make it slightly easier. If you apply for stuff and they already know you, they've had a conversation with you. I'm not saying that's how people get picked for jobs because it's not, but it does make it easier if, for me, for example, working in events, if I then meet someone new and they're looking for someone who's freelance to manage a project for the next 3 months and they know my background because I've had a conversation with them, they might just email me and be like, we've had this conversation, I know your background, you seem like a good fit for this job. If you're out and you're a photographer and you have conversations with bands and things like that and they're looking for a photographer, they then might message you and be like, oh, we met, I've looked at your work, I really like it, we'd like to book you to take band photographs, or if you're a designer, it's the same process. So yeah, I disagree with it's not what you know, it's who you know. But if you're out there, then work does navigate towards you in sort of a freelance sense as well.
In what way do you disagree with it? Is it because there still has to be that talent and understanding and expertise, and you can't really diminish that?
Yeah, I think that I'm talking from a Scotland perspective because I'm fully aware of major organisations down south where maybe it is more a bit it's who you know and not what you know. And there is that sort of class divide within the music industry. I'm well aware of it. But in Scotland in particular, it's more fair than that, I want to say. And it is based on your experience and what you've done and where you've been and kind of if you've started your own project or if there's evidence there that you're proactive and you're going out and you're meeting people and you're proactively coming up with ideas and you can really feed into a project because a lot of organizations in Scotland are kind of sort of community interest or publicly funded. There are hundreds of organizations like ours who do employ on that basis. So I feel like it's when I do talks at colleges and unis and stuff sometimes, I think there is that sort of really demotivated, deflated sort of, yeah, but it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I'm kind of like, it's not. It is to a degree down south. And maybe there are areas in some companies in Scotland that do that. But I disagree with it because I don't want it to be used as a really demotivating statement for people to just be like, yeah, but it's not what you know, it's who you know. So that's why I didn't get the job. And it's kind of like, to a degree, probably not in this situation.
Do you think it's perhaps more a case of joining the dots? You know, you've put in the hard yards, you know who to speak to, you've been at various events, you've delivered your music or your whatever you've been working on project wise, and then that kind of recognition forms its own circle.
Yeah, I think that yeah, there are points where if you've ticked all the initial building blocks to get into the industry, then it was like I was saying before, if you've got those contacts, then sometimes work will find its way to you. If you've been out and people know a bit about you and know who you are, then you might get asked to, if people know you're a graphic designer, you might get asked to do a band's posters or something like that. That is one thing that is really good about Scotland's music industry is that there is a really great community of young industry and young bands alike who work with each other. And I'm still meeting loads of new people from those circles who I'm not aware of. I'm not saying that I need to be aware of everyone. That sounds a bit weird. But that I'm not aware of, and it's really nice to see there's like all these bands navigating together, but they've got young industry with them who are designing all their posters, who are taking all their photos, who are, you know, part managing the band and part helping them, tour and put on their gigs and things like that. And there's a real community element within the kind of younger demographic, and they're doing all these cool things, and that is building for them. Yeah, I think if you've got all the initial building blocks and you're out there, then yeah, work does navigate to you. But if you're applying for a job, that's where it's different. If you're applying for a job, it's not kind of, I know that person, but they've got way less experience than this person who's applied. Therefore, I'm still going to give the person who's got less experience a job because I know them already. People would rather take the person with experience that actually matters to the job, who can actually bring something to the job.
Is there anywhere else in the world, say, you think is doing it better than Scotland and the UK, who has a system that you'd say, if I could move that from there to here, I'd do it in a heartbeat?
Um, I kind of want to say no, not because I'm like the UK is amazing. It's not. It has its shortfalls. There are lots of things that need to be fixed within the wider UK music industry. But I think every creative sector in every music industry has its shortfalls and has its areas where certain people aren't supported or certain groups aren't supported. So I don't think anyone's got the perfect system yet. The only thing I would steal, which is kind of starting to happen already, which is great, is in France they take the levy from the tickets and they fund it back into grassroots music and venues, which is great. The UK is starting to do that through the incredible work of the Music Venue Trust and all the lobbying they've done. Cannot sing Music Venue Trust praises enough. They are an amazing organisation. But because of the work they're doing, it's finally been recognised, and slowly people are coming on board with it. And the ticket levy is starting to happen. And I think that, some quite big artists got behind that and did the levy themselves. And I think that's helped a lot kind of push the narrative forward. And I think the music industry is now getting on board with it and starting to put into that, which will be an amazing boost for the grassroots sector. And it will mean that a lot of really important community elements of grassroots music are able to continue thanks to that levy.
So there's been a few challenges over recent years, everything from COVID, 5 years ago now, to funding. It's been the most recent one. We all know the stories around Creative Scotland who've tried to put the pie out as best they can. And just the general feeling of it feels a little bit hard sometimes. If you're there, if you're an artist, for instance, trying to plug away and persuade venues to get it open for someday or to do your own event, or you're trying to find out how and when to apply for a festival and how you get onto those things, it seems really, really difficult. But those are problems that can be overcome. As you say, it's talking to people, it's networking, it's getting that information because knowledge is power. So away from that, what are the opportunities and the positives that you see in the Scottish music scene just now? Is it thriving? Is it growing? Is it coalescing around each other? Where does it go?
I think the Scottish music industry is growing, and over the next 3 years, you'll really see a development within the music industry. Thanks in part to a wide range of organisations receiving multi-year funding from Creative Scotland, and that kind of being a real positive and you know, I don't think any organisation ever has ever been able to be like, we've got 3 years stability. So that is amazing. So I think it will grow. It will continue to grow. From what we see with kind of Scottish artists and things like that. Scottish artists are at a really good level. And I don't know if that's in part because they feel they need to be at a higher level so that they can kind of cut through the noise within the rest of the UK. But they're at a really good level, and whenever we work with artists, and there are always outcomes from attending delegates who see Scottish artists, who then book them for international events and continue to want to work with them. The same when they go and play international events. So I think Scottish music is at a really good point. There's a lot of really interesting stuff happening and a lot of developments in genres across the country. The one thing that I love about Scotland's music industry is that it feels very community driven and everyone helps each other out where they can. It's spread very thin because everyone's trying to do a million things at once. So it is spread very thin, but everyone kind of comes together and helps on things. And there's a really kind of really nice community spirit to what everyone's doing. And there are so many cool projects happening and so many young people who are starting really great projects and really championing their community or their particular favorite genre or a band that they're working with. And I think that that is really special and it applies to the whole of Scotland. Could it be better between the Central Belt and the rest of Scotland? Definitely could be. But I think that a lot of organisations in the Central Belt are now working to make that better, whether it's, putting out a travel bursary so that people from up north can get down to events and can afford to come down to events and removing sort of barriers to access. And a lot of events now will stream or will record panels so that they can go up online to kind of remove the kind of geographical barriers to being able to still access the knowledge and still kind of learn from your peers. But yeah, I think that we're in an interesting spot. I think it can only get better from here. And I think it will continue to get better. And I think that more opportunities will come up. At the moment, I think a lot of organizations are kind of reassessing and reworking their plans for the next 3 years based on the outcome of the multi-year funding decision. But from kind of the end of summer, I think that there'll be some really positive things coming out and a lot of opportunities for people to get involved in all the cool organisations that exist in Scotland to support grassroots music.
So there's loads of really exciting stuff going on, as you say, around the country as well, which is fabulous. What do you think's missing? What could help? Is there a silver bullet which, if they could just nail it, is it just as simple as more funding? Is it expertise? Is it opportunities, collaborations? What do you think would really supercharge and energize the entire sector?
I think everyone's answer would always be more funding. For organisations and for artists alike, I think that that's always going to be a difficulty. It's a difficulty with, UK-based organisations that provide funding for Scottish artists too, like PRS Foundation, as well as Creative Scotland. I think that if they had the money to give out, everyone would be funded. But they're horrendously oversubscribed for the budgets that they have. So, it is a tough one, and I think that more funding would always help. In the short term, I think that, you know, there is still work to be done on collaborations, whether that's cross-genre collaborations between events that exist in particular genre spaces to work more together, to kind of unify and bring their opportunities to each other. There's always space for more collaboration. It can only strengthen, the knowledge that's being given to people, and it can only strengthen kind of the support that's available for the wider sector.
Well, you've also got a real passion for this, and as you say, you've made it your kind of life. Is it what you thought? From the school people who wanted to do drums, wasn't quite a wee bit too shy to do that, to now speaking at industry panels, enabling other people to share in part of their wisdom and experience, and um, just having a quiet word in somebody's ear. What was your vision, and has it lived up to that?
This is not what I wanted to do throughout uni. When I left uni, this is not what I had envisaged doing. Um, I wanted to work in live music and I wanted to go on tour for the band and I wanted to tour the world. I then left uni and started working with Wide Events for a day a week, and it's progressed from there over the past nearly 6 years now. And I'm really glad that I started this job. I it wasn't what I expected to want to go into, and at the time I didn't even know that sort of a role like this even existed. But I've developed with the organization and with my two bosses who have been, absolutely incredible and supportive and mentored me through kind of building into taking on these projects and working in the role that I'm in. So was it what I wanted to do? No. But am I glad that I did it? Yes. Don't see I don't see myself in another job role at the minute anyway. Um, so yeah, incredibly glad that I took this job, and yeah, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else at the minute. I do love my job, so yeah, can't really complain.
Now, we got in contact through some of the events that you have been coordinating and putting on. They've all looked really impressive. They've all seemed, you know, if not sold out, certainly very well attended. You've had some great names in there, and the feedback is always very, very positive from certainly people I speak to. How do you even go about organizing something like that? Where does it start? What have you got to think, oh, you really must do this? Or is everyone just different? You make it up.
I wish I could just make it up. That would make my life easier. No, so it kind of starts with we have a youth advisory board. So I'll plot down some sort of ideas of topics that I think would work well, that have worked well in the past, that we can maybe expand on, and kind of the real building blocks of, you come to this for the day and you learn about lots of different areas of the industry and you can kind of go away and already apply that. So then I'll speak to our youth advisory board and kind of be like, is this terrible or is it boring or what would you like to see? Then we bounce around ideas and then I kind of flesh out the program a little bit more. And then it's research. I do lots of research. I stalk LinkedIn. I look at all the different venues and look at their staff pages. And I talk to other people who are kind of navigating the industry at the minute. I'm like, do you know anyone who's doing something that's really cool that could pass on some advice to other people who want to start something that is also really cool? And, it kind of builds from there. And I kind of program a selection of speakers. It's usually around 15 speakers, based on that and where I can slot them into the different sessions and, how their lived experiences will apply to the topic that they're talking about and whether they can impart the advice needed by the young people onto them as well. And yeah, I mean, it does help that I go to a lot of other events and I see lots of other people speak. So I know how cool these people are that I want to book. So that also feeds into it as well. But yeah, this year, absolutely loved the speaker lineup. They were all wonderful people. Last year as well. I've done it for the past 2 years now. And yeah, both times everyone's so lovely and so engaged and they want to pass on what they've learned to the next generation and they're excited by it and they want to see the next generation do well. So I think when everyone kind of matches with the ethos of the event, it really drives it forward in a positive way.
And what is it you want to hear from the people who are attending? What makes you satisfied that it's been a job well done?
Either that they have spoke to someone who they've never spoken to before, or they've taken something away from the event. It doesn't matter whether it's something completely tiny and minuscule or whether it's like this made me want to release an EP. It could be like, oh, I learned this thing about releasing that I never knew about before. Just that they've taken something away or they've had a conversation with someone or that they've had fun. I don't want people to come and be like, this is dead boring. I hate the music industry. So yeah, just the fact that they've come and they've had fun and that they would attend again. And, I get some nice emails from attendees who take the time to, email me about the event and follow up with questions, or maybe they didn't get a chance to speak to one of the speakers, so they ask if they can be put in touch with them. And I think it's always really positive to see so many people being so proactive and wanting to do well in their careers. So yeah, it's always really lovely after an event.
Out of all the events that you've organised and managed, is there any one thing that sticks out for you?
Oh, it was probably the first off the record in Edinburgh that I did in 2023. No, 24. 2024. Yeah, the first off the record in Edinburgh. I'd never I am like the person who organizes, implements it, and delivers it. from start to finish. It's me. I feed back my plans to my bosses, and we have an amazing social media coordinator called Callie who makes our socials look amazing because I cannot do that for the life of me. But everything else, the booking of everything, the implementing it, even down to making the delegate passes and sticking all the labels on it, is me. So to deliver that for the first time when I'd not done anything completely by myself before was, yeah, amazing. Such an achievement. And it was so nice seeing the room busy because, there's that little anxious niggle in the back of your head where you're kind of like, oh, all these people have signed up, but what if all of them decide on the same day that they're not going to attend this event? And I'm just stood with all the speakers in the room by myself. So yeah, the fact that everyone turned up as well was really, really nice and positive. So yeah, that would be the standout for me.
We're going to go into our fast questions round just to finish things off today, if you don't mind. What was the music of your youth, and do you still carry it with you?
Growing up, my dad was really into kind of ska music, so that's what I grew up listening to. And yes, I'm still into it. We still go to gigs together for different bands.
The last song or podcast that you listened to?
Well, technically, I was listening to this podcast before the podcast started to see what other people had said. But no, the last song that I listened to was probably our artists that are on our showcase program, but I can't say who they are, so sorry about that.
Would you choose an exclusive album launch or festival?
Festival.
Favorite food or rider?
Oh, favorite food. It's really boring, but pizza.
If you could collaborate on a project with anyone around or in history, who would it be and why?
I know this is supposed to be quick, but oh my God. Anyone past or present, past or present. My favorite band growing up was The Clash, so if I could do something with The Clash, then that would be absolutely amazing.
Restaurant, cinema, or lazy Sunday brunch?
Cinema.
Digital addict, or can you switch off?
Yeah, I can switch off. Yeah.
Favorite live venue?
La Belle Angel in Edinburgh.
What does life look like after music?
I don't know if there is a life after music. I'll probably do it until I die.
One artist everyone should be listening to right now.
Indoor Foxes.
And from then till now, what's been the good stuff in between?
Making so many cool friends who I continue to see at lots of things that I do. And yeah, that's been the best part.
Kitt Carr, thanks so much for your time today. Best of luck with the events that are coming up. That was a good stuff in between. Thanks again for listening, taking part. And today's theme is Nothing's Going to Bring Me Down by the fabulous Willie Campbell. You can find out more from him at williecampbell.co.uk. Show's written, edited and produced by myself, Shaun Milne, and is done in association with Skoog Media and Good Stuff in Between Agency. And if you've got any questions for us, drop us a line on our socials. I'd be happy to mention them. Kitt, one last plug for the website.
Yeah, please check out everything at otrscott.com.
Now you're taking away my sorrow, you're taking away my fear. We're not promised tomorrow, so let me hold you close, my dear. Nothing's gonna bring me down. No thinking about the past while we're building for tomorrow.